The world's most advanced fighter jet isn't American alone. From Tokyo to London, from Warsaw to Tel Aviv, dozens of nations now fly a weapon so secretive, even its closest partners don't know everything inside. For decades, U.S. allies begged for stealth technology. Washington always said no. But today, over 17 countries operate the F-35. Why? Because this jet isn't just a plane. It's a ticket into America's inner circle. And the surprising truth, some of the biggest users aren't the ones you'd expect. After the Cold War, the U.S. was king of the skies. Stealth fighters like the F-117 and F-22 guaranteed air dominance. Allies? They were left flying yesterday's designs. The British had Tornadoes, the Italians Typhoons, the Japanese F-4s. Good jets, but not stealth. Everyone assumed the U.S. would never share its crown jewel technology. But the wars of the 2000s, the rise of China, and Russia's pushback forced a rethink. The result was the Joint Strike Fighter, the F-35. Not just an aircraft, but an alliance project. And today, it's spread wider than anyone predicted. Why does this matter? Because whoever controls the F-35 controls the skies in the 21st century. Russia has the Su-57. China has the J-20. Both are dangerous, but neither has been exported widely. The F-35. It's already in the hands of America's closest friends. And this changes the map of global power. Europe now has stealth. Asia has stealth. Even tiny nations like Denmark and Belgium now field technology rivaling superpowers. But here's the twist. The biggest operators aren't just old allies. Some of them are surprising newcomers. If you think you already know who ranks number one, hit like now, because I promise, the real answer will shock you. At number 7, Israel, the only Middle Eastern operator of the F-35. They call theirs the Adir, meaning mighty one. Unlike other nations, Israel gets something rare: deep access to the jet's software. Why? Because Washington trusts no ally's combat experience more. Israeli F-35s have already seen combat, striking targets in Syria and possibly Iran. This makes Israel the first nation besides the U.S. to use stealth fighters in real operations. Number 6, Italy. Italy not only flies the F-35 from land bases, it's one of the few countries operating the vertical takeoff B model from its aircraft carrier Cavour. Why did Rome buy in? Because the F-35 keeps Italy's navy relevant, and because Italian industry actually builds major sections of the jet, giving jobs and prestige. But Italy is just the start of Europe's stealth wave. At number 5, two small nations punching above their weight, the Netherlands and Belgium. Together, they're ordering around 70 jets. Why so many for such small countries? NATO nuclear sharing. Dutch and Belgian F-35s are certified to carry U.S. nuclear bombs stored in Europe, which means in a future war, these tiny air forces could deliver the most powerful weapons ever built. Comment below. Would you trust nuclear deterrence to countries this small? Number 4, the United Kingdom. London plans to operate about 138 jets, mostly the B variant for its new carriers, HMS Queen Elizabeth and HMS Prince of Wales. For Britain, the F-35 isn't just about defense. It's about projecting power overseas. With carriers sailing to the Pacific, the Royal Navy once again shows the Union Jack on the world's oceans. But even Britain's fleet is dwarfed by what comes next. Number 3, Japan. Facing China's J-20 and constant incursions from Russian bombers, Tokyo is building one of the largest F-35 fleets in the world, minus 147 jets. Even more dramatic, Japan is converting its Izumo-class helicopter carriers into mini aircraft carriers, capable of launching the F-35B. For a nation that once swore off offensive war, this is a historic transformation. At number 2, the United States. Yes, the U.S. invented the F-35, and yes, it will operate over 2,000, 500 of them across the Air Force, Navy, and Marines. But remember, this is a global ranking. The U.S. may have the largest future fleet, but in terms of international impact, one other nation is punching way above its weight. Number one isn't just one country, it's a bloc. South Korea is buying 80 jets, Poland 32, Finland 64, Switzerland 36, Norway 52, Denmark 27, and more are signing on. Collectively, this makes Europe and Asia's secondary powers the fastest-growing F-35 operators. Why? Because for them, the F-35 isn't just a plane. It's insurance. Insurance against Russia. Insurance against China. And when dozens of small nations operate the same jet, it creates something new. An alliance air force, fused together by shared stealth. But what makes the F-35 worth this global rush? It isn't speed. It isn't weapons. It's information. Imagine wearing a helmet that lets you see through the aircraft's skin. Imagine fusing radar, satellites, drones, and ground forces into a single picture. That's the F-35. In simple terms, it sees first, shoots first, and survives where others would be blind. The F-35 is also an economic empire. Over 400,000 jobs across the U.S. and allied countries depend on it. Nations don't just buy a jet, they buy into a supply chain. Italy builds wings. Japan assembles fuselages. The UK produces 15% of every aircraft. The price? Around $80 million per jet. Costly, yes, but compared to losing air superiority, priceless. So what happens next? If Europe keeps expanding, NATO could field over 600 F-35s by 2030. In Asia, Japan and South Korea alone could match that number. This means Russia's Air Force, with only a handful of Su-57s, risks being outnumbered and outclassed. China, despite hundreds of J-20s, will face a unified network of allied stealth. But there's a catch. If the F-35 fails, if software breaks down, if upgrades lag, entire militaries could find themselves dependent on a jet that can't perform. The stakes couldn't be higher. For the engineers who built it, the F-35 is proof their nation still leads. For the pilots, it's a lifeline in the sky. And for smaller countries, it's a promise. They won't be left behind in the next great war. But in a world this divided, one question remains. Will the F-35 unite the free world or drag it into conflicts it cannot escape? If you've stayed with me this far, you're not just curious. You care about the future of air power. So here's my challenge. Hit subscribe, because the next story is even bigger. And tell me in the comments, do you think the F-35 changes the balance of power, or is it overhyped?